What happens when a determined voice refuses to step aside? Jasmine Crockett, recognized for her forthright leadership and dedication to truth, confronts Melania Trump in a moment, revealing gaps in carefully cultivated public images. In this critical exchange, Jasmine isn't merely speaking for the audience. She addresses topics many would rather ignore. For those who admire her persistence, this is a moment worth remembering. Stay with us as we explore a story that seldom reaches the headlines. It was a quiet evening when the live broadcast began, and no one anticipated the conversation escalating so quickly. The studio was sleek and organized, designed for politicians, prominent figures, and leaders to discuss pressing national matters. That night's participants couldn't have been more contrasting. Jasmine Crockett, the steadfast and outspoken Congresswoman from Texas, and Melania Trump, the former First Lady known for her composed and refined demeanor. The host, an experienced journalist, navigated the discussion effortlessly, giving the guests room while keeping the flow orderly. The evening's focus was America's future, the challenges ahead, and possible strategies to address them. These were matters everyone present felt connected to. As the cameras rolled, Jasmine spoke first. Her tone projected authority, yet remained warm, allowing listeners to sense her genuine concern for the nation. She discussed inequality, healthcare reform, and voting rights. Serious topics delivered in a relatable, conversational style. Her message was concise and direct. The nation must unite and confront its challenges honestly. Melania Trump, by contrast, projected serene confidence. Her voice was soft and deliberate, reflecting years of sustaining a controlled public image. Her remarks also emphasized unity, but centered on family values, endorsing her husband's vision and improving children's lives. She stressed that America's strength derives from cooperation, and that every citizen bears responsibility. Initially, the discussion remained courteous. Two committed women presenting distinct approaches to similar issues. The host guided the dialogue smoothly, alternating between guests and granting each the opportunity to elaborate. For viewers, it seemed a standard, well-managed political discussion. Yet as the conversation progressed, subtle tension emerged. A minor shift in Jasmine's expression suggested disagreement with Melania, though she remained silent. Both women held their ground. Jasmine's statements conveyed firm conviction beneath her composed exterior, while Melania, composed, was equally willing to assert herself. Believing the debate was unfolding well, the host referenced a recent poll indicating the nation's growing division. He asked both participants for their viewpoints. Jasmine responded instantly, noting the division was not merely political. It was emotional. People had ceased trusting one another, she explained. And without rebuilding trust, Americans would struggle to address major issues. Melania nodded and replied in her measured voice. She spoke of remembering fundamental American values, family, discipline, and responsibility. Her words seemed slightly detached, as if directed at both Jasmine and the audience, reminding them of principles she deemed essential to the nation's strength. Then unexpectedly, Melania shifted the dialogue. Her voice cooled. "Before we discuss America," she said, "perhaps you should prove where you were born. Only those truly American should speak on this country." Her words hung heavily over the room. Jasmine paused briefly while the host glanced between them, attempting to interpret the abrupt turn. Melania's remark was not casual. It was a pointed challenge. The subtle tension became unmistakable. A calm debate on national concerns had turned personal. Jasmine did not respond immediately. Instead, she offered a slow, controlled smile, as though anticipating such a moment. The situation was clear. This was no longer just a discussion. It had evolved into a direct confrontation. The forthcoming moments were unpredictable, and the audience remained silent, fully attentive to Jasmine. When Melania's statement landed, the space seemed to freeze. Even Jasmine appeared momentarily caught off guard. The audience, previously relaxed, sensed the sudden shift, a charged atmosphere demanding focus. Jasmine, known for her keen mind and self-assurance, paused only briefly. Her eyes narrowed with a trace of disbelief before she regained composure. It was evident the conversation had entirely shifted. Melania's words reverberated again, deliberate and firm. "Before we discuss America, perhaps you should prove where you were born. Only people genuinely from America should have a voice." The remark felt like a direct challenge to Jasmine's identity and her authority to address national issues. Silence persisted in the room. Melania, usually composed and reserved, revealed a different demeanor, more purposeful than usual. Jasmine, swift to respond, let the statement linger momentarily before speaking. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, steady yet firm. The inquiry was simple, but carried weight, asking Melania to clarify her implication. The host attempted to steer the discussion back to neutral ground, yet it was apparent Melania had firmly stated her stance. "I am asking if you can demonstrate that you are truly American," she said, with an accusatory edge, seemingly questioning Jasmine's legitimacy in the conversation. "Before we continue discussing the country's future, we need to know who you really are." Her words echoed through the studio. The underlying message was unmistakable. Melania, herself an immigrant, insinuated that Jasmine lacked the authenticity to speak for America. The contradiction was not lost on anyone. For a moment, Jasmine absorbed the comment. Then, drawing on her experience, she let the silence linger just long enough before responding. "Well, I don't think you get to decide who speaks for America, Melania," she said, her voice calm yet firm with authority. "I was born right here in the heart of Texas, and believe me, I understand what it means to fight for this country's future." The audience, tense only moments before, finally seemed to exhale. Jasmine's words were resolute and compelling. She would not be dismissed today. Not by anyone. The host, attempting to regain control, cleared his throat and tried to steer the discussion back to familiar topics. But Melania, determined to maintain her position, was not finished. "Well, we all know who has truly guided this country, don't we?" she said, her eyes briefly meeting the cameras, her tone sharp. "Perhaps those not born here shouldn't be questioning what America really needs." The atmosphere in the studio thickened. The audience, now alert, leaned forward, sensing something important unfolding. Was this about patriotism or something deeper? A challenge to authority? A clash of perspectives? Whatever it was, the conversation had turned personal. Jasmine allowed the remark to settle, refusing to be rattled. The audience, now alert, leaned forward, sensing something important unfolding. Was this about patriotism or something deeper? A challenge to authority? A clash of perspectives? Whatever it was, the conversation had turned personal. Jasmine allowed the remark to settle, refusing to be rattled. She would not let Melania's indirect jab go unanswered. The former First Lady had opened the door, and Jasmine stepped through it. "You think being born somewhere else gives you the authority to decide who is truly American?" Jasmine's voice carried both frustration and disbelief. "This country was built by immigrants. You cannot determine who is allowed to speak based on birthplace. That's not how it works. And if you believe I'm the only one who feels this way, you're mistaken." Her words were clear, imbued with broader meaning. Jasmine was not speaking solely for herself. She was speaking for anyone who had ever been questioned or dismissed because of their background or identity. Melania, usually composed and distant, now appeared tense. Her smile had vanished, replaced by a tight expression. She was unaccustomed to such direct pushback. The polished exterior she relied on, her carefully maintained composure, was beginning to shift. The host tried again to redirect. But the division was already evident. Jasmine Crockett would not be silenced. And Melania Trump, for the first time that evening, was losing control of the discussion. This was not merely about who was American. It was about the right to speak, the right to challenge, and the right to define what being American truly meant. As the dialogue slowed, the audience remained on edge, uncertain what would happen next. Would Melania step back? Would Jasmine continue pressing? Or was something more serious imminent? No one knew. But one thing was certain. What started as a polite discussion about America had turned into a direct confrontation, and no one could predict the outcome. The mood in the studio had shifted entirely. What began as a calm exchange had become a tense standoff. The disagreement between Jasmine Crockett and Melania Trump was no longer about policy. It had become personal. Each woman held the other's gaze, unwilling to retreat. Each defending her own view of what it meant to represent the country. Jasmine felt the weight of Melania's comment. That casual remark about her birthplace had been more than a slight. It felt deliberate. But Jasmine was not going to respond with simple words. She intended to answer with precision in a way no one expected. Leaning forward slightly, her eyes sharp, she spoke quietly but with clear intent. "You want to question where I'm from?" she began slowly. "Then let's discuss something else. Why don't you tell us the truth about Baron Trump's real mother?" Silence filled the studio. The host froze, shocked and bewildered, while Melania's face tightened instantly. For a moment, no one spoke. The impact of Jasmine's statement was undeniable. This was not casual commentary. It was pointed and personal, challenging the image Melania had carefully cultivated. The audience leaned in, murmuring softly as they processed what they had just heard. Was Jasmine questioning Baron's parentage? Was there more beneath it? No one knew precisely what she meant, but the implication alone threatened far more than Melania's public persona. Melania, always composed, drew a sharp breath. Her eyes narrowed and her earlier smile had vanished completely. She was unprepared for this. She searched for a reply, something to counter, something to dismiss the assertion. But Jasmine's question had caught her off guard. The host, visibly unsettled, stepped in, sounding rattled. "Jasmine, can you clarify what you mean by that? What exactly are you implying? This is a very serious statement." Jasmine did not flinch. She leaned in further, her tone steady and incisive. "I'm not suggesting anything," she said. "But perhaps Melania should stop pretending. The truth has a way of revealing itself, even when you try to conceal it." The tension in the room deepened. It wasn't just a statement. It was the certainty in her voice, as though she understood something others did not. This wasn't an empty allegation. It was a direct challenge to the narrative Melania had cultivated for years. Melania blinked, her composure faltering briefly. She recovered swiftly, responding sharply, attempting to regain control. "That's a false story," she said firmly. "I am Baron's real mother, not Ivanka." "Me." Her tone was strong, intended to halt further discussion, but once the subject had been raised, it could not be undone. Jasmine maintained her gaze on Melania. Calm, yet with clear intent, she replied. "I never claimed Ivanka was his mother. But Melania, let's be honest, you've been hiding a great deal and everyone knows it. Don't act like you don't know what I'm referring to." Melania's lips tightened, her face flushing slightly. For years she had managed her image with discipline, presenting a composed and untouchable facade. But now, under Jasmine Crockett's scrutiny, that image was cracking. Jasmine's words were more than a challenge. They confronted the entire public persona Melania had constructed. The poised, silent supporter, always appearing flawless. Jasmine was pulling back the cover, raising questions others avoided. What had truly occurred behind closed doors? What had Melania been concealing? As time passed, Melania remained quiet. Her discomfort was evident. She shifted in her seat. The audience watched intently, waiting for her response. Would she deny the claim again, confront Jasmine directly, or let the silence speak for itself? The host, realizing the moment had exceeded the show's plan, tried once more to redirect. "Let's focus on the main topics," he said, though his voice lacked certainty. Even he seemed unsettled by Jasmine's statement. But Jasmine refused to move on. "No," she said firmly. "We're discussing the truth. We're addressing the story Melania has hidden for years. She can hide behind her perfect image, but the truth never stays buried." The tension escalated. What began as a discussion about America's future had become a significant confrontation over hidden personal matters and a public image that was no longer shielded. Melania's silence conveyed more than words. For the first time that night, she had no immediate reply. That pause, heavy with pressure, was the most revealing moment yet. For several seconds she stared forward, trying to regain composure, but nothing emerged. The audience observed how Jasmine's remark had pierced the image Melania spent years shaping. Jasmine's focus remained unwavering. She had spoken, and Melania's hesitation made it clear the question had struck profoundly. The former First Lady, usually composed even under scrutiny, now seemed cornered. The audience perceived it. She wasn't merely defending her motherhood. She was protecting the identity she had constructed. Finally, Melania responded, her words rapid, attempting to regain control. "That's a false story," she said sharply, though her voice carried uncertainty. "I am Baron's real mother, not Ivanka." "Me." Her tone was strong, yet strain was evident. Jasmine, seasoned in political pressure, recognized the vulnerability behind the confidence. This wasn't an ordinary exchange. Boundaries had been crossed, and Melania was unprepared for the scrutiny. "You're right, Melania," Jasmine said, her voice tinged with sarcasm. "You are Baron's real mother." Then her expression shifted, indicating she knew more than she had disclosed. "But that's not what I'm referring to, is it?" Melania's jaw tightened. Years of maintaining a polished public persona had not prepared her for this questioning. Jasmine's implication was not solely about Baron's parentage. It struck a deeper chord, one Melania had labored to keep hidden. Old doubts, rumors, and questions from her White House tenure resurfaced, and she could no longer act as if they didn't exist. "I don't understand what you're implying," Melania said, her voice tense, her composure fraying with each moment. You understand perfectly, Jasmine replied, steady and direct, as if addressing someone refusing reality. Stop pretending, Melania. Everyone knows there's more here, something you've tried to keep hidden. The tension in the room thickened. The audience leaned forward, anticipating Melania's response. She preserved her calm expression, though it was visibly wavering. I'm not hiding anything, she said, quieter yet still firm. I'm Baron's mother, and that is what matters. Jasmine responded without pause, cutting through the moment. It's not just about being his mother. It's about what you've concealed. The truth is you've relied on a perfected image for years, Jasmine said. That's why confronting the truth feels threatening, because once it emerges, you lose control of the story. The audience absorbed her words. They hung heavy, laden with the weight of an uncomfortable reality. For years, Melania had presented herself as the calm, refined First Lady avoiding political conflict. But the image of a flawless, supportive spouse had always been questioned, and now it was openly challenged. You cannot rewrite the past, Melania, Jasmine continued, her voice rising slightly. And you cannot keep pretending all is well. People notice the inconsistencies. No matter your efforts, the truth eventually surfaces. Melania's expression paled, yet she maintained her stance. This is absurd, she said, her voice trembling. I have done nothing wrong. I am Baron's mother. I have always been there for him, and that is what matters. Jasmine shook her head, frustration evident. You still miss the point. This isn't just about motherhood. It's about the truth you've avoided. The narrative you shaped to escape difficult questions, and now you are trapped. The words landed firmly. Melania's carefully constructed public persona could no longer shield her. Jasmine's remarks transcended political differences. They challenged the essence of who Melania presented herself to be. The host sensed escalation and attempted intervention. Let's bring the discussion back, he said, trying to redirect. We are here to discuss America's future. But Jasmine pressed on. The future of America, she repeated, slightly incredulous. How can we discuss what lies ahead when the past remains unresolved? When people like Melania shape the narrative while hiding behind selective truths? Melania's control faltered. This conversation was no longer about her role as mother or first lady. It was whether she could sustain the image she had cultivated for years. Jasmine had uncovered a deeper layer, revealing strain beneath the polished exterior. The studio fell silent. Jasmine's words did more than challenge Melania's position. They revealed her as someone actively suppressing parts of her story and the family's history. What began as a policy discussion had become a direct confrontation. Melania, long projecting restraint and elegance, now appeared cornered. Her eyes flickered, betraying the pressure beneath her composed exterior. She attempted to dismiss Jasmine's claims, to deny them, even treat them as unreasonable, but Jasmine pressed on. Each statement eroded her defenses. The host again tried to steady the discussion. Let's stay focused, he said uneasily. We are supposed to discuss national matters, not personal issues. Jasmine did not yield. She had observed how Melania kept distance from controversies surrounding her husband, presenting herself as uninvolved. Jasmine refused to accept that narrative. No, Jasmine said sharply. We're discussing the truth you've avoided. You have hidden behind a perfected image for years, acting as if separate from everything around you. But you are part of this, Melania. You cannot keep pretending otherwise. The room grew silent. The audience grasped the weight of the moment. What began as political debate had become a revelation of a long-guarded facade. People like you, Jasmine continued, believe you can shape the narrative as you choose, but truth cannot be managed forever. Eventually it surfaces and exposes everything you tried to conceal. Melania's lips tightened. Her face paled further. She said nothing. This was not only about reputation. It was a struggle to defend the identity she had carefully crafted, now being dismantled piece by piece. The tension in the studio was unmistakable. Jasmine's words placed Melania fully on the defensive. The more she denied, the more the conversation pressed toward the underlying truth. You cannot keep hiding, Melania, Jasmine said. This is not just about you and Barron. It concerns the narrative you've controlled, the public you've influenced, and the silence you maintained when your husband's actions required accountability. You are not a bystander, and people see that now. Melania's breathing quickened. For a moment, it seemed she might leave the set to avoid further confrontation, but she remained. Whether out of pride or realizing departure would worsen the moment, she stayed seated. The audience remained silent, absorbing Jasmine's words. What? You believe you can keep pretending none of this matters? Jasmine said, unyielding. People are tired of misdirection. You have shaped public perception for years, but that control is gone. The truth is emerging. The host again tried to redirect. We've covered many points, he said, strained. Let's shift to broader issues affecting the nation. But Jasmine persisted. No, this is the issue. America deserves transparency. People need to know who they are dealing with. Not the curated version in the media, but the real story behind it. Another silence settled. Jasmine was not only speaking about Melania. She addressed a broader system where public figures prospered by withholding truth. Melania's expression revealed the discussion's weight. The composed exterior she had maintained for years seemed to vanish. The image was gone. The real Melania stood exposed. Jasmine's words hit their mark. What began as a conversation about America's direction became a confrontation with hidden truths. The audience saw it clearly. Melania's defense weakened, and revelation felt inevitable.